Hello. Hi, Megan. How's it going? Yoga pants or joggers. What are you making? Do you have a pattern already? It's good to see you guys. It's been so long. It feels like it's been a long time. I feel like so much has happened, but nothing like I don't know, nothing really either. So let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. It's been so while, you know, things always get a little weird. So I like to make sure, just making sure I can see my chat majiggy. There we go. Ah, the next, that's what I thought you were going to say. Which one are you getting? Are you getting the, is it the Hudson? Hi, Melinda. Yay. Hi, Ray. It's good to see you again. I know, Melinda, it's really tough. Like, I know it's like so hard to pick a time. I finally had to just be like, I have to pick a time that I can be really consistent with, you know? So, hi, Vicky. Hi, Jan. I know, it's been a while. Yeah, I just was, last week, I went into that week going so focused on so many other things. And I just haven't, since we started streams this year, been able to decide on what to stream, mainly because I'm so focused on these other things. And so I felt like all I could stream for you guys were things that I already had over there in my queue that I've made with you before. And I was like, oh, I feel bad doing that. And I finally was like, just do that. It's easy, so you can focus on these other things that are really important. So, hi, Laura. Hello from California. That's what I thought. You got the Hudson pants? Cool. Malin, your coat looks amazing, Malin. Good job. I mean, that Sienna Maker coat, it looks like a totally different animal, too. Illinois, Iowa. I mean, it's kind of a special thing to be from a state that begins with an I. And I say this also as the mom of a daughter whose name begins with I. It's such a, it's so unique. And I didn't realize that when I named her, you know? So that's awesome, Malin. I'm glad. It did seem like your process was really smooth and you just kind of trucked along and just did it. Because you went from like, okay, I have this plan, to it being done. Pretty good. Yeah, it's on Instagram, Ray. Search the middle name she has there. Search for that. I'm pretty sure, right, Mullen? It's like Hill of It, handmade. Sorry. Extra, Megan. Okay. You know, I feel like I just saw someone post a video on making joggers and leggings, and wasn't it So to Fit? Yeah, see, yeah, not bad. Sometimes I get people's names confused. Like, I think Laura Jones, you're yoga something, right? And you did the project bag trial, and so I feel like I saw your thing in Facebook and I wanted to say, you know, good job, Laura. And then I was like, oh my God, is that really her name? Is that her Instagram? Like I that self-doubt, you know? Yeah, okay, cool, thanks. Okay, good. Thanks for reassuring me. Okay, so I know I've made this for you guys. I apologize that I've made you the archer before. I am gonna actually talk a lot about like fit and adjustments that I think are really applicable to other garments. And I have this chronic issue where things are really full right in the small of my back. And it's not because I'm a particularly slender person at all. So, you know, I'm really excited about getting the Beatrice form because I cannot wait. I know this sounds crazy, but I cannot wait to look at my backside. I just like the whole back because I just don't understand what's going on there. So, and I think partly it's because weirdly I'm a toe walker. So I walk on my toes, and it's because my Achilles tendons are short. So you'll very regularly see me wearing clogs. And it's just because those are very natural, like a very natural foot position for me. I'm very comfortable in them. I used to be a full-time cyclist in clogs. Like, that's how comfortable. I wore them out. Like, I would stretch them out because I'd wear them in the rain on my bike. So, and And like right now I'm wearing tennis shoes or kind of like that, but I have like a orthotic in there with a lift under the heel so that I can kind of be up on my toes a little bit. And I feel like that's what's happening. I think that's why, because I'm not sway backed, I don't have all those other adjustments, because I'm like, well, those would work for me, but that's not my issue. And I think it's because of the way my muscles have developed back here, up high. So, oh yeah, Megan, I know what you mean. Really, and it's funny, Megan, because the comment I get sometimes on my videos is like, can't you just please edit this down? And I'm like, yeah, it's a live stream. I'm not a video editor. I really apologize about that. I wish they were faster too. I wish I could sew this in an hour, but it's just not how it is. And it really is it's the experience. So, and if you're watching this in the future, hello future, you get to pause, fast forward, rewind. You don't have to listen to me talking about my toe walking at all. So you are lucky, as where all these people here, they're a captive audience, unfortunately. So, but anyway, that's what I think. Like, I've thought about this a lot. It's something, I'm gonna have to turn my heater off. I just turned it on because I was like, oh, if you don't have it on at all, it might get cold in here. But now I'm getting kind of hot. I love thinking about fit. Like, I think a lot of people say that, but I don't think they don't, but I don't think they think about it the way I do. In fact, I love thinking about it in like a three-dimensional thing, and posture. Like, my posture is definitely unique because of the way I walk, and everybody's is. And I look at people and I am just fascinated by it in an extremely non-judgmental way, you know, and I don't think people believe that often, so I have to be careful with how I talk about it. But it's just really interesting to me. I like the physical side of it. I really like seeing like where someone's neck is positioned on their head, on their body, or the slope of their shoulders is something very interesting to me. Like, my husband, before he was my husband, I would look at his shoulders constantly. He was so unique. And the other fascinating part about him is he was a fencer, a fencer for a really long time. And so that played into it. But he also has, he has an arthritic condition. But his shoulder, like, he's a very small guy, like, not small, but just, he's just not a really big guy, you know. He looks like a pro cyclist, you know, like a road cyclist. And so his stature is really interesting to me, you know what I mean? So anyway, I find talking about sizing really kind of cool. And so I've been thinking a lot about how the back of this Archer fits me, because every time I put one on, all of mine fit me differently. Oh, I have all of them here. So let's see. My first two were these, and I made. Do you guys remember Sprout Patterns? Did anyone hear of Sprout Patterns? So Spoonflower used to have this little division where you could print the pattern pieces on the fabric print, whatever you wanted. I'm kind of describing that a little poorly, and they are now defunct, unfortunately. But these are both Sprout versions of the Archer button-up. And I think I made the same size I've made here, but the thing is, you don't get to pre-wash the fabric and take out the shrinkage before the pattern pieces are printed on there. So it's a little different, right? And so, but those actually fit me pretty good. They're really wrinkly, and this one, you know, this one was supposed to be a black background. This is a very good example of how far Spoonflower's come in their printing. Now, I just consider it gray and it doesn't bug me, but back then they didn't do blacks very well. Now they do them really good. And I really wanted that kind of like small floral, kind of Liberty of London-esque print, so, and I picked these really quick. And then I made this one, right? With you guys was my next one. This one is I feel like this one fits me the best, and it's because I really hacked off the bottom hem so that it's not like tight here and then really baggy in my lower back. And this one too, but I haven't shortened this one, but this one fits me really good. And this was a store sample for a local fabric store I made in my school colors, my high school colors. And then I made this one with you guys as well because I just really wanted one at the time. So they're all the same size. The other really big difference is when I remember that the neck, the collar stand, and the all the pieces up here are 1/2 inch seam allowance, not 1/4 inch. And so there's a big difference with how some of these fit because of that. Hi Daphne, how's it going? Megan, I finally did get a successful scan for the Beatrice. It took my husband and I a bit of work. It wasn't easy. There was something with the background here that didn't work the first time, even though our scans, they said, were beautiful. And then the second time, it almost didn't happen either, but it worked. And the first, like, you can't have anything moving in the background. And then, of course, the one time, like, we left the door open for extra light, and the big Rottweiler showed up, you know. So, but anyway, the scan should be done in like 3 to 4 weeks, probably like 3 weeks from now, and then we go from there. Then they show me kind of a digital image of it. So, hi Betsy. Oh, good. I'm glad. Hi Terry. Yeah, that's true, right? So anyway, we can get right to it, but I love this shirt. I think overall the fit of this shirt is great, and it fits a lot of people really, really well. I am not doing these things because it doesn't fit good. I'm just doing these because I really want to kind of refine the fit. And so today I'm not going to cut out my garment, and this is the fabrics I'm going to do it. So I was originally going to do a reversible archer. I know, Terry, you might be disappointed that this may not end up being reversible. It may, because I'm going to do flat felled seams, and it is going to be lined. And I'm going to go for that if it's possible. I have a feeling it'll be reversible no matter what because of the flat felled seams. They're so good for that. So, but what I'm going to do today is I'm going to adjust all the things I want to do with my pattern fit wise, and then I'm going to make another pattern based on it for my little cozy overshirt version. So that's what we're going to do. So did I use black fabric for the background? Oh, for my scan, I didn't. But for the second one, I did, like, I pushed a few things over there in that area I don't use. It's always like this terrible eyesore in the back of my pictures. And then I put up some of my pegboard panels around, because I have all these pegboard panels from doing shows, and I hung up some fabric. I just calmed it down. Like, it's actually not that crazy. He's like, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I have a light floor. I don't know. So he wanted to say hi. He totally wanted to say hi. He started walking in there, and we were like, oh no, because I finally took the dog fence down at the door. And so then we had to shut the door in between scans. It was that dog, man. Anywho. Okay, so how's the lighting and everything look? I'm making straight sides or grade between sides. Well, yeah, exactly, Malin. I actually do think that's a really good fix, because then the shirt will relax and hang down a little bit. But do any of you, like, I see my goal for like a year or maybe 20 years has been to have, I always used to wear this little like shirt that had darts buttoned down with a collar. And just kind of like, it was just nice to have a woven top that wasn't loose, and it just fit really good, and it was really versatile. I used to have one. It's my basic block that I use, and I haven't used it for a while. And then I just haven't sewn for a while, and then, you know, all these years go by. I still have like one of those I wear, I think. Oh no, I don't think. And so in the last year, I wanted to revamp that pattern and make that shirt. And then we started to do the custom, our personal blocks, which we're going to get back to soon. And then I started, I'm going to do that. But now I feel like I'm kind of beating the Archer into submission to be that kind of shirt a little bit, but just a button down version of it, like a long sleeve Oxford style. So yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so that's my plan. And I don't have an example, but I'm going to put hand pockets right here, you know, a little curve, and so my hands can go right here. There won't be a chest pocket. I might put one on the inside, which could be the outside of the other one, you know. Oh, that's awesome, Megan. The one I made was in merino jersey, merino and cotton interlock. I got it from Needle Sharp. It's amazing fabric. I ended up going back and buying more of the fabric because I forgot that I hadn't pre-washed that fabric when I cut and sewed it. I cut out the front and the back, and then I remembered I hadn't. So I washed the rest of it, cut the sleeves, and it fit me really great before I washed the whole thing again. And then after that, I was like, yeah, this is a little too saucy for me. So I gave it to I cut it off and made it a sweatshirt for my daughter, and it's really cute on her. So, I actually use the back of that fabric as pocket lining for one of my vests. So cozy. Okay, so I'm going to put hand pockets in there. I'm probably going to straighten the little hem for my overshirt. I'm also going to kind of put a little bit of girth right here. These pins right here are denoting my pocket shape, like how high I wanted it. I really worked on this a little bit today. And on the back, I really went to town and I took out a lot. So I have about 3.5 inches I'm taking out at about this small of my back right here. And I felt like I could go all the way up. I'm going to remove the pleat. The pleat on my pattern doesn't match. I don't know if I have a pattern with an error in it or what, but my pleat here does not match to the yoke. So my pleat's always been a little weird anyway. So I might make these princess seams. We'll see. The other thing I'm going to do, which I know a few of you are going to probably be glued to the screen for, is I'm going to... So my only thing, I really love the Grainline Studio patterns. I feel like overall they are really, really, really great patterns as a base. They're really well drafted. They always work really, really well. But for me and my body, always, the armholes are not big enough for me. And so don't think I've ever noticed it on this until yesterday because it's a big enough shirt. So, but if I were to put this on, my shoulder's about right here, so this is kind of hanging off. It's a bit of a drop shoulder. But then this is sitting like up here. It's really weird. And it's just covered up by the fact that it's loose. So I'm going to bring in the shoulder across the back. So this is going to I'm going to have to add to the cap. And I'm also going to scoop it down lower, about 3/4 of an inch, maybe a fat 3/4. Malin is the one who turned me on to this because it started with the willow. She warned me and she was absolutely right, and I started noticing it because my tamarack jacket, it's fantastic, but it's tight. It's really tight through here. And that's why using the tamarack as a vest pattern works perfect because you don't have to change the armhole. So, oh, here's the super thick black. Oh, and hand washed it, yeah. That is smart. You taking a college class, Ray? What are you working on? That's cool. Yeah, Betsy, I know. Finding a good sleeve and armhole. I feel like I've said this before. If I were to write like a singles profile as a sewist, it would be like, you know, a good set and sleeve really gets my heart going. You know, anytime it fits right here through the shoulders and the armhole, all the rest is a piece of cake. So, okay. Let me see. Is my sweater looks like so dull. Isn't that crazy? Look at me up here in the face cam. That's the true color. Like on my screen, it's like carrot. Do I need to change that? Like my shirts. Look at them here and then look at them here. Oh, cameras. All right, so this is my proposed little ditty here. So I might make these into a princess line. I have my hand pockets. I'm probably putting in a little vent right there. A vent is like a little side slit. So, oh no, Melinda, that's a bummer. Are you making this one, the Archer? Such a great shirt. Such a great staple. Okay, here's my list. I made it visual so that I wouldn't get lured into reading chat and forget something. All right, so here's my pattern pieces. They're extremely well loved. In fact, I made my daughter an archer for Christmas, and she's much smaller than me. You guys know that. So I actually just chopped up my pattern because I was in a hurry. Classic, right? And then I just taped all the pieces I chopped off back to my pattern. So today I'm finally getting a manila copy of my pattern, which means I'm putting it on like heavier cardstock paper. So, which I haven't cut up yet, but I have a little bit here I'm going to start with. So I'm just going to move this aside. So it looks like I might need to darken the camera a little bit for you guys. Oh, QuickBooks. Yeah, right, Megan? I know. Exactly. Okay, let me work on the camera here a little bit. But where's the color thing? I'm gonna look at my color. Is it this one? Can I adjust that? Oh, it's on auto. Oh, that's a little better. Is that better, you guys? Is that too bright? How's that, you guys? That's awesome, Melinda. That's better. I look sickly white. Not me. I'm like bright red in my camera. Really? Like, I look at my camera picture, my face cam, and I'm like, ooh, that's why I am a pink person. That's why I say I'm pink. I think the paper looks good though, right? Not too bright? I can always rely on Megan being honest. I really love that. Nah. I'm definitely a white girl, Megan. It's kind of hard to find a balance coloring wise for me. Okay, I need to set these aside and I need them to not fall anywhere, like into the garbage. So let's put them under a pattern weight. So these pattern pieces reflect the changes I have already made to my archer. And they are, I have narrowed my sleeve a little tiny bit. You can see my lines. So in that way, Malin, I guess I kind of did grade between the sizes. It's also shortened right here by a lot. This is the other thing about this pattern is the sleeves are extremely long and they're very full. And so I kind of tapered them down a lot. So, and I shortened it as well, as you can see right here. So if I needed to take 3 inches out, I just drew a line on the lengthen and shorten line, half that amount, and then I just folded it in half. And that's, I think, all I have done. There's a right front and a left front and a center back. And so I've also, same thing. So all the side seams match. So what I did was I updated my pattern to reflect the changes that this archer has. This archer wasn't sewn correctly in the neckline and the collar, I'm pretty sure. Parts of it are 1/2 inch seam, parts of it are 1/4 inch seams because I probably kept getting confused. It's a constant struggle for me. It's very much an industry thing to have 1/4 inch seams on all of your facing collar pieces and necklines, always. There's never ever barely a reason that you would have a different seam allowance than that. And when home sewing patterns add more, I just totally get confused and I forget to respect that. So that was my bad. So some of my archers fit better through here, and I feel like that's a big difference because that 1/4 inch right here, when you only take in a 1/4 inch seam allowance, it means that this neckline creeps up onto your neck. So it's not sitting out here, it's sitting up here, and that can make your garment feel a little like creepy crawly. You know what I mean? So they're not sickly white. This is my guys. That is like literally, in real life, they're a little pinker. You know, if I am ever like, you know, going out on a date, which is never going to happen again, I'm going to call Megan and see what she thinks of my outfit. All right, so do I have enough? Yeah, I do. I think I have enough paper for this. All right, so this is my back. It's my shortest pattern pieces, so I think I can be able to use it right here. But this is also the one that I'm going to be making into probably princess lines. So honestly, I really only need about this much. Pretty sure. I'll tell you why in just a second. It's I feel like the hardest thing to figure out is where your darts and your princess lines need to go when you're looking at the back of a garment and the back of yourself and you don't have anyone to help you. So I did things like I would put on the shirt and then I would just stab with a pin like at my waistband, and then I would kind of, you know, take off the shirt and then adjust it and then put it on and look again. And I just had to keep going back and forth. It was frustrating for me, just like it is for anybody. So exactly. That's your superpower, Megan. I love honesty. Well, I don't know about that, Megan. I think I've been having a little bit rough week in the old honesty front with the old teen front. So I may have a different opinion on that. We could have a whole different stream about that. So I am just, if anyone's new here, I'm a trained pattern drafter. So I went to fashion school. Crazy as it sounds, I did, and I focused on pattern drafting, and that's what I did for a really long time. And I really love to sew. Like, I really love to sew. So I have a few pattern drafting tools that I use. I don't have a ton of different things. I don't use a CAD program anymore because my CAD program aged out. So I just do it all flat on the table. And the tools I have are my pattern scissors. I have a really pointy, sharp tracing wheel, which I highly recommend getting if you ever want to trace a garment without taking it apart. And I have a notcher for my notches. And this just puts a little hole in the paper. It's like a hole puncher, but it's only on the edge of the paper. And it looks like this. I use mine upside down often, or maybe this is right side up, I don't know. I like soft lead pencils when I'm by myself. I use a hard lead pencil, but you couldn't see that at all. This one's a hard lead. Oh, this one's pretty dark. It's a 4H. H is hard, B is soft, and then this one is a soft. This is 4B. It's a little darker. These stay sharper much longer, and that's why I like the hard lead pencils, but they are a lot harder to see, and usually I use a 2H or a 4H. I am no expert in this, I just know this. So, often on camera though, I will use a big old fat Sharpie so you can see what I'm doing. I don't recommend that because the ink can be like 1/8 of an inch wide, and that's a lot, so. Oh man, Melinda. You're just like gonna be planning. Nothing's gonna stop you. All right, so I'm gonna use my tracing wheel to kind of trace this pattern onto my paper here. Now I'm only gonna go to about right there because I'm putting the center back on the fold, and then there's gonna be side backs because I'm gonna probably do princess seams. So here's my top. And you won't be able to see these dots, but I can see them, and then I'll show you where they're at. I don't really need any of those markings, and I can't really access them because it's way over there. But what I do need to do right now, before I take this off, is decide how wide it's gonna be right now. Because I'll need that line for the side back. I haven't really planned this out. I usually kind of do this on the fly with you guys so you can see what it's like. Oh gosh, yeah, Laura. So, yeah. Okay, so this is my back waist right here. And, you know, I have this pretty narrow, 2.5 inches. That's not classically, I will say, that is not classically about how far apart your darts are in the back. I'm pretty narrow across my back. It's like the one small area of my body is across my back and my rib cage area. So I just kind of know that this will be fine. It'll work. And it's kind of an interesting look. I kind of like that. But, you know, I think just for normalcy's sake, I am going to move these lines out a little bit and put them more like probably 5 inches apart. So that means my center back at the waist is about 2.5 inches. And so I'm just going to make it proportional. So if this up here was 4 inches when this was 2.5, this is up here is going to be more like, you know, I'm going to say, let's see, 2.5, that's 4. I mean, do I want to just add straight up at 1.5 inches? I'm trying to decide. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll make this 6 inches across the top and about 5 inches at the center back waist right there. There are rules in pattern drafting, but when you're doing your custom stuff, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, they did. I never told you. I'm sorry, you guys. Yeah, you know, I went back and looked at that post, the Spoonflower post, and I saw someone comment on there. They're like, you guys need to check out this Facebook group and this other thing. They do not need these things for the, I'm talking about we were going to do a week of making bags for animals, like baby kangaroos and joeys and stuff, for Australia. And then I looked, it's really hard to find a place to know where to help sewing wise there. So unfortunate. Glad they're getting that much, but I really like to be able to help in a way that I know how, you know? So I'm going to measure down first. That's about 12.5 inches. There's 1/2 inch seam allowance on the Archer. Am I completely on the camera? Yeah. 12.5 inches. Right here is my center back waist. And this has shift. This is starting to shift. I gotta be really careful. 12.5 inches. Right here. And I'm gonna make it about 5 inches apart. So this line that I'm going to draw right now is not going to have seam allowance. All right, so we're just going to do something like this. We're going to make it look like a dart at first. I'm just going to draw a line here like this. And then I'm going to make it the same at the bottom as it is at the top, like this. Okay, so I have a 2.5 inches away from the center, 3 inches away from the center. This looks more, better not be. Okay, and now I'm gonna trace that onto the pattern piece. So this is me adding you can add a dart this way or a princess line. And a princess line is just a dart as a seam, but it usually goes all the way up through the shoulder or into the armhole. So now I have this on my pattern piece, I can take it off. And I have it on here, we're good. So let's draw it in here. Oh, this is the other tool I use a lot, is just a basic see-through ruler because it has the 1/8 on it. I am obviously American, so I talk in inches. I do not know if there is a metric version of this. I'm thinking a lot about metrics lately because of the pattern that I'm doing. I'm getting very familiar with it. I'm very uncomfortable because I don't want to make any mistakes. Okay, so this basically is going to be my center back. I'm just going to make this a little smoother of a line, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance. So we are going to, I want to do flat felled seams, and I think, Terry, what do you think? Flat felled seams? Like, I want the smallest flat felled seam possible. I think this one's done in French seams. I'm gonna do like 5/8. Is that too small? Yeah, exactly. Metric is so much easier. Offering both on my patterns is essential. it's just something that kind of went over my head at first to even think of doing, because I started it kind of way back, like in May, and or maybe even further. So I think I'm gonna do, if I do 3/4, it's too much, don't you think? 5/8. That's weird. What did I just get there? Sorry, let me look at this. Oh, I'm getting spammed with something. That's awesome, Betsy. That's great. You've made the transition. Okay, I'm gonna go with 5/8. Oh, I just feel like that's too small. If I do 1/4 inch, I'm gonna do 3/4. Right? I can always trim it off. It just depends on what fabric you're using, right? I know I have hem and seam allowances on this already, so I'm just gonna leave that on there like that. And then this is my center back. Oh, I actually want to remove the pleat, but that's okay. I can do that still. All right, so I'm gonna cut this out, and then we'll get onto our side back. Yeah, exactly. I think it's fun, Malin, when you say, oh, I just have my inch ruler out. Like when we're talking, you're like, I just get my inch ruler out when you're talking so that you can talk in terms of the same thing. I'm just making this square. It doesn't look square to me. I'm a stickler for 90-degree angles at seams and folds. All right, so this is the rare moment where you see me cut something out moving my scissors rather than bringing the pattern piece to me. All right, so we have our center back. This is scrap. We might be able to use that. So now we have this piece here to use as a side back. I'm going to lay this piece on here again. So now this is where I'm going to start like taking out all of that excess that you saw on my Archer. So I'm going to trace this first. I can trace it with a pencil sometimes too. And I'm gonna have to start working on my armhole too. You kind of get just jumped right into here. Oh, I forgot the most important one right here. Now, you guys, there are plenty of people that do pattern drafting streams, and they're awesome. Like, they are doing it in a very classic and very instructive way, like by the book. If you're looking for that kind, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm kind of doing that, but I'm not really. So, basically, I'm saying I don't want to get those comments. So don't send them to me. I know enough to know that this isn't the classic way. I need my waist there. I'm just doing a custom alteration for me. And I am not standard, just like everybody else in the world. Right? I'm just going over my dots here. This isn't anything I would do for a company. All right, so let's take out our shirt. And so we have all that I took out right there in these pins here. And so what I could do is just measure from the side seam over to, that's not gonna work. There's a few ways you could do this. Yeah, right, Malin, exactly. There's a few ways you could do this, because This line right here on my shirt that's pinned isn't the line I ended up with on my paper pattern. So I could actually move all this and do all that. If that's the easiest way that makes sense to you, I would do that, because anytime you kind of get into these adjustments, you can get kind of lost in it and confuse yourself in it. So just keeping it as straightforward and whatever makes sense to you as possible is totally fine. Like, you don't have to know some magic formula or, you know, like, you shouldn't have to know it off the top of your head. And when you're working in a design room, there are other people shouting things at you or talking to you, maybe offering suggestions. Some design rooms aren't like that. I've had some where it's just very hands-off. So you really got to kind of keep it logical to you. I think that's really important anytime you're doing anything. It's just like with sewing. That's why I always say use pins and clips if you want. Like, it's no big deal. Whatever works. So the other thing to do, and probably the more accurate where I'm at right now, is to measure across the back of my shirt and match it. That's more accurate. It's going to give me a better result. You can already see that it's got this nice little curve that's happening. When I put my shirt on after doing all this pinning, even the front looked better. Like, the front already fits pretty good, but it definitely just kind of gave me a little bit more shape. So yeah, I think, Betsy, that's it. And plus I'm working through it too, because I try and keep this as organic as possible, mainly because I feel like it makes more sense when you see the thought process, but sometimes I make mistakes too. So, and sometimes I have to change my mind. All right, so let's measure across at the waist here where I have this all pinned. It's a delicate balance. It's not perfect. It's not symmetrical, but it's pretty darn close. You could also, if I were doing this professionally and not doing it in a custom way, I would probably be working on half a garment. That is sometimes very tricky to do. So I have about 18 3/4 across the back waist. And then across the chest here, or really across the armholes, not technically the chest, but most people do consider across the armhole points as the chest. That's fine. As long as you're consistent, you can do whatever you freaking want. You know? All right, so I have about 20 1/8. Now down here, you're not going to want to measure along the hemline. You're going to want to measure across the hips. You can measure along the hemline if you want to get, if you're like, I really want that, go for it. But you don't have to either. Okay. Do any of you watch, I was starting to lead up to this. I've been watching Frankie and Johnny on Netflix. I don't know if all of you get that or watch it, but Jane Fonda's shirts have reminded me how much I really like the shirt to fit in the back. And it's basically she's wearing a button-down shirt, and she likes her collars up. She's definitely a wasp. And you know, it's I just really like looking at her from the back is just so pleasing. The shirt's just nice, you know. Right, Betsy? Totally. Boy, I did not like that in the 80s, and I don't like it now. It looks good on her, the popped collar, you know. So, all right, so here we are. Here's my back waist. And remember, this seam doesn't have seam allowance. All of those do. So, you know, this is the thing. If you're kind of a beginner pattern drafter, I would draw in your seam allowance. It reminds you it's there. So you know that that's what you're talking about. And you need to do it here too. Like this right here is the juncture, the sewn juncture, not here. So, and I always say that kind of in a snotty way because it's really easy to do that to yourself and you can't figure out where you went wrong, you know? Same here. So if I take out my 3/4 inch hem, this is where I was measuring. I don't have my grain line on here, and that's kind of a mistake. So we can go use our yoke as a perpendicular line as the grain, so that I know how to go straight across. I'm going to use this line as my straight across. So these are my measurement points. I don't know why, but, and maybe they still do in the Big Four patterns, but somewhere along the line, pattern companies stopped putting these lines in. And it's kind of a bummer because they're really, really helpful. I don't put them on commercial patterns for manufacturing, but do you guys remember that Home Sew Patterns always had the bust, the waist, the hip, you know? Yeah. Yeah, Frankie and Grace, Jan. Right. Yeah. Yeah, right, Betsy? That's cool, though. Like, I feel like when, yeah, I figured Vogue probably still does. You know, Betsy, I feel like when you have those ideas, though, that's what kind of pushes you to figure it out. You're willing to make the mistakes in order to get to the end result that you're looking for, you know? All right, so then we have our bust, waist, hip, and then I can kind of know, like, this is where I'm measuring. It doesn't mean it's the actual bust, waist, hip. It's just where I'm measuring. So I'm consistent, you know? So it's the same here, you know? I could put it on here. I'll line up on my seam line. I'm going to be a little bit bookish for you by doing this, you know? I'll try. I'll try to be bookish. So look, now we have this very clear, it helps, doesn't it? Like you have this like very clear diagram. So now we had 20 for our hip. And so this is the other gift you're going to give yourself. You're going to write your measurement right on the line. Because otherwise you're going to measure it about, sorry, I was just looking at that, over and over. You're gonna forget it, and then you're gonna be like, what was that measurement again? Just write it on there. You know? And so then you can even be even kinder to yourself. Let's see, I have a calculator. Use a calculator. I can't do math in front of people. I'm not a performance artist. So you can say, all right, if my across hip is 20, that means my half hip is 10, right? So 10 minus the 2.875 I have right here, which means I need to make this 7 1/8. Right? Hi, Andy. How's it going? Andy, were you the one making the circle skirt? Yeah, that's awesome, Jan. Yeah. Was it you or Unica? Who was making the circle skirt, you guys? I found a free circle skirt pattern for that person. And it's Megan Nielsen Patterns. If you sign up for her newsletter, no, it wasn't you? Okay. I know it was someone who had a name that was a guy's name. I don't know if you're a girl or a guy, but you know what I mean? Like classically, Andy can be a guy's name. And I know Unica I feel like it was Unica. Be kind to your future you. Right. Yeah, I feel like it might have been unique. I messaged her YouTube video to let her know. But there's a free, whoever that was, I'm sorry if I forgot who that was. If you sign up for Megan Nielsen Patterns newsletter, she lets you pick from a certain number of patterns, a free pattern, and that is one of them. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was too, Mullen. Okay, well, I let her know and in one of his comments just to make sure he saw it. So, okay, so see, this I'm just making this really easy for myself, right? 7 1/8. And for this piece, I'm going to measure on the center back panel. I'm going to measure from the center back toward the side back, and for the side back, I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to measure from here to there and adjust this line because this is where I'm trying to remove it right here. I'm not removing it from the side seam. You can adjust your measurements using the side seam. It's just not where sometimes you need it removed. Hi, Deborah. You know, I want to sew that one, Deborah, but you know, it doesn't have an armhole, does it? But I like that that one has darts. It's like a camp shirt, right? But it doesn't have the armhole, right? It's just a cut in one. I can't remember the name of that. But, all right, let me finish this up here, right here. Okay, so my back waist, yep, was 18. So that's 9 3/8 minus, at least I know my fractions for decimals. Okay, and then my across chest was 10, and I will write plus for 1/16 of an inch. I don't write the 16th. Sorry. 7 1/4. So it's more like 7 1/4 plus. All right. Now remember, I'm also going to be adjusting my armhole. Okay, so 7 1/4, about right here. 6 3/4, and you're measuring to your seam line, right? There, 7 1/8. Bifocals are not kind for this kind of thing. And so I can go straight through the seam. Like I could take a little bit out up here. Actually, I'm going to, right? Because I'm taking out that pleat. But see how little, look at how tiny my pleat is. It is not what's on the pattern. You know? My pattern does not match the yoke. I've tried over and over. I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? So it's not much right here. So I'm just going to take out a little bit. Like, I'm just going to take a little bit out right there. And so now I'm going to draw my new line. Look at how much I'm carving out here. I'm going to use my hip curve actually. I do have a couple of other rulers. I've had this one since college. There's still paint on it from one of the classes. So let's see. I can flip it over now, kind of do this. And let's just see about that right there. Is that about how much I took out down there? You know? And it is, you know? This is the amount that I took out in the hem. It's a little more on my shirt. Close, you know? Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now we have, see there's my, so this is the seam. So this would be my old Archer, this whole piece right here. And so this to here is what I'm taking out. And that's about right. I don't really like the shape of this though, so I'm gonna kind of adjust that. I'm looking at it sideways, so I'm gonna look at it right side up and that'll help. Let's see, we'll look at this back here. I took out about, you know, yeah, it's like 7/8 of an inch at the widest part right there. So that means that's like 1 3/4 here and 1 3/4 there. It's a lot, you know? Oh, cool. Oh, that one looks really cool. Sew the sleeves flat. Oh, you don't have to. It's got an armhole, right? I made the like cheesemaker smock from Folkwear. I was really into those pin tucks for a while. When I saw that shirt, I was like, ooh, those things make me look bustier. I don't want to look bustier. So, you know, I don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. All right, so I'm going to cut this off and look at it. It's a much smaller space over here. Okay, so Yeah, so I can definitely, I'm gonna actually do this. Something like that looks better, and just kind of smooth this out. I'm gonna add my seam allowance to that piece, to this line here. And if you start getting confused with your pens and pencils, what I did in college, because I did, was I had a bunch of different colored pens, so I totally looked like that teenage girl who had all her different colored pens, but they were really useful. So I would start with one, and I would always tell myself, you ended on green. You know what I mean? And then that way I would know green was my final color, you know? So that kind of helps. Yeah, they're really not that hard if you iron the heck out of them, right, Mullen? And you really use your guides on your machine to sew them. So, all right, so now we're gonna talk to the armhole. You can see I have this little wingy out thingy going on here, and that's because of the back pleat. I'm getting rid of that. So we already know that my yoke, oh, I want 3/4 of an inch seam. You guys are slacking. Well, I'm not really lining it up perfectly on the seam line. I'm just kind of getting a ballpark. But see, look at that. Mine was pretty, see, now it fits. So it's kind of weird that way. So I'll just probably make this a right angle, but I'm also going to trim big time this whole thing here. So I need to add a little more seam allowance. When you're making this many changes, you're going to have some back and forth, and you're going to have to probably readdress things, and you might make some mistakes. It's a lot of things, and you know, like one big change can affect something you've already changed as well. So you may kind of go, whoops. So, oh, that's smart, Malin. That's so smart that you left it kind of like extra fabric. Because you know, a good pattern will have pin tucks, and if they're shaping, like if it's like, say the pin tucks end on a seam that has shape, like a curve or not a straight line, they will have the little like peaks and valleys, so that when you fold it, it'll all line up perfectly. But I know a lot of people skip that step because they don't really want to do it, and they don't want to show it graded because it's so confusing looking. But yeah. All right, so I'm going to drop my armhole 3/4 of an inch. Now, I can just drop it straight from this cut edge here, because then the seam allowance is already included. This is my new line. Sometimes I put little circles like that. And then this original seam allowance was 1/2 inch. I don't actually like using circles because I don't like the way it looks, but it's handy. All right, so here's my... So I really want to bring this in, and I want to bring it in a lot. I'm a little nervous about how much I want to bring it in, so I might do a muslin of just this area here. I literally could bring up the seam about 1.25 inches. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do 1 inch because I'm a little nervous about it. So I'm going to take off 1 inch right here. I'm taking 3/4 here. Look at this armhole, man. It got gigantic, and that makes me a little nervous. Now you got to remember, sometimes these yokes, this shoulder seam here isn't a shoulder seam. It's actually coming forward a little bit. This is most likely the shoulder seam right here. So that armhole looks gigantic right now, but at the same time, this right here is really the shoulder. Your back is usually a little narrower. That just doesn't quite, well, it's actually right here, sorry. That would make sense, see? Have I been cutting this out wrong? Look at that. This notch goes to this line. I think I've been using the wrong neck seam. That's great. I'm actually glad. Okay. So that's most likely my real shoulder line on this pattern. So that's where we want to take off our inch and then kind of swing back the other way. All right. Big changes, big changes. Okay. So I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to add 1/4 inch. I don't need a flat felled seam there. I need one here and I need one here, so I'm going to add a 1/4 inch to those for the flat fell seam. So I know it's getting a little messy, but I can also erase my old lines. Sorry, I know that moves the camera. We're going to add a 1/4 inch here. Something like that. I'm not, at this time, changing my hemline, but I will for my shirt. You need to shorten. What do you mean by shorten armhole, Betsy? Yeah, so armholes are really really weird. So it's interesting because you want your armhole to be close fitting for the most movement and for the least amount your shirt lifting up. You want your armhole to be really close to you. You don't want to make it bigger. Yeah, and you do, Betsy, but mine is not sitting there. So when I wear this shirt, the seam is sitting here. It's not sitting here. So you're right. You're absolutely right. If you need the shirt to fit you better, like say your armhole's down here, and you're just like, because that puts the pivot point down here. And then what happens is the whole shirt moves up, because if your sleeve is connected down to here, then when you lift it up, your shirt's pulling from here, right? What I'm trying to get is that armhole. Mine actually isn't doing that. It just looks good on me because the shirt's loose and it's covering it up. But I want this a little bit more tailored, for lack of a better word. It doesn't mean this is going to work perfectly the first time, because this is kind of a drastic change, because I'm also changing all this too. And I found that once I took this in, that's when I noticed the armhole wasn't fitting me well. That's probably because it wasn't as loose anymore. And so it really pointed out that this seam was sitting like right here. So the cross shoulder. Yeah, because I like my shoulders to sit on my shoulder. And it's interesting. I had a really good discussion with the gal from Beatrice Forms about this, because she said, I can't wait to see where you decide to put your shoulder seam. And then I kind of agonized over it, because you put a little dot on your shoulder where your pivot, and like where she has hers in the video, it's really tempting for me to put it there, but I was like, that's actually not where I wanted mine. And so I guess that's something like, as she sees all these scans come in, she's fascinated by where people want certain things, because it's totally up to you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. It's really confusing, Betsy. All right, so I'm leaving my 1/2 inch seam here on the yoke seam. It's this one. I have a little paper bin right there. That's why I'm throwing things at you guys. So this is still my curved hem, but it's shorter. And I think, like Mullen said, like adding to your hip circumference and also raising this shirt up with the little curve right here coming up, that kind of helps. If you have wider hips and you're like, I really don't want to make the biggest size just because my hips are at that point, this little cutout really helps you, and you can just give yourself a little flare. Because I find that because of this, it sits above my hips and it doesn't really do that. Yeah, Ray, it totally does. In fact, that's one of the things I'm thinking about, because because of the fabric choices for this shirt I'm going to sew, it's why I decided to make all the changes to one pattern and then take this pattern and make a different pattern. Because I don't want to make this pattern, do all this work, to something I'm only going to use on this one, this like cozy overshirt that I'm making, Because this is what I was about to do. I was about to put this at a right angle. Yes, I like right angles here. I won't rant about it. Everyone in chat's like, oh God, thank you. She's not gonna rant about it this time. I like right angles and I cannot lie. All right, so this is my new side back and she's looking really saucy and I'm really excited about it. Yeah. So the thing I'm probably gonna encounter when I sew this together because of these angles is I'm gonna have some of this going on, a little point here. So it's something to think about now. So what I can do is I'm lining up my seam on top of my seam. The other way you can do that is, like, I have a 3/4 of an inch seam, so I can draw a 1.5 inch line. That's double the 3/4 inch seam, and then I can line this edge up, right? Just make sure when you line it up here, you're lining it on the seam line. Don't line it to the point, line it to the seam line right here at the middle, right? So now I have these, so you could tape it together. It would be more accurate to tape it together, use your scissors and kind of true up this edge right here. You can also use a rotary knife, which I'm not a big fan of doing for pattern drafting. So I have removable tape for this, just this kind of thing. I'm probably gonna need to add a piece up here, otherwise it'll pull it apart. So you can kind of see I would get this little point here. So let's just make sure. I'm just gonna raise this up a little bit, give myself some room. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of go by this. Now it's a flat felled seam. Very thick right there. The flat filled seam is gonna fall short a little bit inside there, but that's okay. Hi Pam, how's it going? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, really? Yeah, you know, Melin, that's actually a really good cheat. You just have to accommodate for the length. Yeah, I know. Okay. I always put my, what did I just do with that? I just thoughtlessly put that piece of tape there. I just reuse those pieces until they don't stick. All right, so here's my back. We've spent a long time on the back. I'm just gonna transfer this guy. Gonna cut a big piece of paper too, but one that my sleeve can fit on. Oh, the sleeve's not the big one. Okay. Well, I forgot to tell you guys. Did I tell you guys that I had a rat here? I feel like my stories are always involving pets. Not really into animals though. Yeah, so I have a saga about the rat here. Okay, sorry, I have to turn this paper over. It's gonna be a little noisy and I might hit the camera. There go all my pattern pieces too. I gotta make sure I don't lose those. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut this off so I don't have to use this big piece of paper. So my office is really it's like a stone's throw from a channel that's usually dry. And then this time of year, this might be running water in it. And definitely in spring, it's like an overflow to a big creek that's on the other side of my house. And so I get a lot more critters here because of it. So, oh, that's awesome, Pam. That's awesome. You know, the Mountain View jeans were great. I saw, by the way, you guys, Itch to Stitch Designs, who is the Mountain View jeans gal. she is having a birthday sale on patterns, and she has a jean jacket that looks almost identical to the Audrey. So, yeah, thank you, Mullen. Exactly. So anyway, I get a few more critters here than I don't really mind on the most part, but this little rat came in when it was kind of like getting kind of cold and wet here, and so I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, but there is like a basically a transom above my door that's not filled in, and there's big gap under the door, so maybe he's coming that way, or she, I don't know. Maybe he's coming from that side, I don't know. Anyway, he wasn't going after my food. He was going after my cleaning supplies. And so I didn't notice he had bitten into a bag of dish soap refill, hand soap refill, like the Method bags. And I didn't know he had done that, and it was in the container. And one day it just smelled good over there. And then I finally was like, what? I lifted up everything, and there was this huge pool of gel soap, and I was just like, ugh. I don't like cleaning up soap. It's the worst. And so I left it, and it kind of dried out over a few days, which helped. And then I used a dough scraper, and I scraped it off the floor. He also got into a Tide bleach stick, so I was like, oh, this problem's probably going to sort itself out. Didn't die. And then I started seeing little poops everywhere. And then right, Laura? Exactly. Hey, Rachel, how's it going? Yeah, so I know my daughter wanted me to bring my dogs to work, my little pug, and I was like, oh, I can't right now because there's a pile of dish soap. I don't know where the bleach pen traveled while it was broken. There's little rat poops everywhere. I wasn't going to, and Molly, my dog, would totally go after something like that. So I was like, yeah, not going to happen. So, I told the landlord I didn't want him to get rid of it because I felt kind of bad for it. I know it's terrible because they're so unhygienic. And he was like, oh, I already took care of it. So it's gone now, and thing was huge. But it was kind of funny. Okay. I don't really have to do a whole lot of changes to this piece. Probably really can't see that because of my hard lead pencil. But I like started getting paranoid that I was going to get sick from it. I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm not a paranoid person at all. So because I'm not a paranoid person, I will then be like, maybe I should be more paranoid. You know? So dumb. So ridiculous. Okay. So here's my front. Let's put the pocket placement on here. It'll be nice to have. Put the Grainline on here, but it is parallel to center front, so if you forget, you can just use this. And then this is the left front, and it has the placket that you just fold twice, and so edge stitch, so then you don't have to attach a placket to it. And that's the bigger pattern piece. Oh, I also need to do my back yoke. We're gonna get rid of that pattern piece now. We're gonna get rid of you soon too. So on my front, I'm going to be, and I kind of left enough there. I'm going to be adding a little bit, weirdly, to my center front. I have very conflicted feelings about this because it will take my center front off grain unless I change the grain line. That is very much frowned upon. But at the same time, I need it here. Because someone has a belly. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I know it was interesting news after cleaning supplies, especially because I had boxes of crackers. I finally one day gave it some dog treats. I was like, I'm gonna put dog treats in the bowl and maybe he'll stay in the closet. That didn't work. He was like, oh. So. Yeah, it is strange, isn't it? Oh, I love your username. Protesting Maryland Seamstress. I can barely read it because it's bright yellow, but can I add here for a larger bust? I I mean, over here you could do a full bust adjustment if you really wanted just to add some right here. That would be awesome. And then you could even, if you end up getting a little too much extra fabric down here, you could use a dart or something to kind of tailor it up a little bit. I don't really need that. I really need a full belly adjustment. It's a different kind of FBA. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna add 3/4 here. Oh, you guys, I don't know about this. I don't have a long enough ruler either. I really don't know how I feel about this. Why didn't I think this through? Okay. So if I do that, what if I keep my grain line here? See, the potential problem I see is, what if I had a plaid? Nice to see you too, Pam. A full belly adjustment, right, Jan? Yeah, where's that fun little clever thing? So if I had a plaid, how much would this disrupt it? A lot. Or do I just put this as my center front? Why not? That's what I'm gonna do. I'll make the grain line parallel to this. It's my shirt. Nice seeing you, Pam. I'm so glad you could join us. The live is totally different, isn't it? Yeah, the belly adjustment would be good to cover. You know what? I'm just gonna add 3/4 there, which is gonna give me 1.5 inches extra. I mean, this shirt kind of does it too. It'll just like hang open right there. So, okay, so I'm gonna, that's my plan. You can learn from me and see how it goes. So let's see, our placket is 1 inch, so we need to move this here 1 inch and 1 inch. These are my new fold lines right here. I'm gonna square this up to the bottom still, which is kind of weird. I think, let's see. I'm sure there is a much more formal way to do this. And then here's my placket here. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the extra 1/4 inch on the neckline. I still need to do that on the yoke, but I haven't made my yoke yet. So I'm going to take this 1/4 inch off here, because that's my personal thing. I always confuse myself on this shirt and sew the seam at 1/4 inch when it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then my collar doesn't fit very well. So yeah, exactly, Rachel. I bet it does. They are geniuses with that. I'm going to add 1/4 inch here for my flat felled seams that I want to do, and then we're going to work on my ambitious armhole. I'm going to get rid of this. Sorry if I'm moving the camera. I just finally figured out a way to make it so that won't happen to you guys, but it's going to take some carpentry of my doing. And have I mentioned I only know how to sew? Okay, so let's put our grain line back on here. Just putting a new parallel line right here. I like grain lines to go off of the paper too. Oops, that wasn't straight. And here's my pocket. I don't need 3/4 inch here because it's in the yoke, so that's fine. 1/2 inch is fine. I'll leave this. I just need to deal with my armhole now. Okay, so let's get my back in here. So this is going to be my new depth. I don't think it's going to be 1 inch. It's going to be somewhere around here. This shoulder has a little bit of easing into the yoke. I always forget about that. So I love kale. What are you talking about, kale? Night, Betsy. See you later.